Today's story unfolds in Mexico, a country located in North America. It is one of the largest economies in the region with four main economic pillars: agriculture, manufacturing, services, and tourism. The country has a population of around 130 million people with complex social relationships. The percentage of the white population is gradually decreasing year by year and currently stands at only 9%. The capital of Mexico is Mexico City, one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Mexico is a beautiful country with vast deserts, charming beaches, majestic mountain ranges, and bustling cities. However, behind this magnificent exterior lies a multitude of social problems. Located 50 kilometers east of Mexico City is the city of Ciudad Juarez, situated at the foot of the Cristo Rey Mountain. Ciudad Juarez is one of the most dangerous cities in Mexico, characterized by long summers, abundant sunshine, and significant daily temperature fluctuations. This unique climate has made Ciudad Juarez a well-known region in Mexico for producing excellent wines. In the photograph, Maria is depicted. She was born in Mexico City, a coastal city in southwestern Mexico, into an upper-class family. Her father Carlos is a local judge, and her mother Ana is a lawyer who owns her own law firm. Maria also has a younger brother who is 3 years younger than her and suffers from paralysis of the lower body, requiring special care from the family. From childhood, Maria was intelligent and resourceful, with excellent academic achievements. She had diverse interests, excelled in acting, and was a talented and beautiful young woman with a kind heart. If one were to highlight her greatest strength, it would be her kind heart. Before her 20th birthday, her parents gifted her a Nissan Note. Maria actively participated in social events for animal protection and support for underprivileged children. In 2019, Maria was accepted into the University of Ciudad Juarez with excellent results, specializing in social sciences and humanities. The university is located north of the center of Ciudad Juarez, 50 kilometers from her hometown of Mexico City. It is a leading state research university and one of the oldest universities in Mexico. Maria rented a room in the university's women's dormitory. Her parents wanted her to have a comfortable means of transportation, so they gifted her a Nissan Note for her 20th birthday. In addition to her studies, Maria actively participated in social events for animal protection. Her kind and open personality allowed her to make many friends at the university. At a party, Maria met Juan, a 22-year-old student at the University of Ciudad Juarez, specializing in theology. Juan was an energetic young man who loved sports, especially soccer. Every time he went to class or out, Juan always carried his favorite soccer ball. Although they studied different subjects, Maria and Juan had compatible personalities and always found something to talk about, quickly becoming close friends. However, one night in May 2019, the two young friends faced a brutal test of fate. On May 26, 2019, a Friday evening, students at the University of Ciudad Juarez were finishing their week of classes. That year, Maria was 25 years old and had been studying at the university for almost 2 years. Since it was the weekend, she decided to go to a nearby bar with a group of friends to relax. The nightlife in Ciudad Juarez was very lively, especially on weekends when bars were filled with patrons. That evening, Maria and her friends went to a bar, drank, chatted, and enjoyed a rare fun time. At that time, Maria noticed Juan with another group of friends. Since they knew each other, they naturally sat down to talk, and their friends quickly got acquainted. The group played dominoes, a game very popular among Mexican students at the time. Time flew, and before they knew it, it was already 5 a.m. Maria, feeling it was late, said goodbye to the group, saying she would go back to the dormitory and meet them again another time. At this moment, Juan also expressed his desire to leave. Initially, Juan planned to walk home, but thinking it was late and that Maria, as a girl, would not be safe walking alone, he offered to escort her home. Maria gladly accepted the offer. Although they were not a couple, they might have had some feelings for each other. On the quiet road at dawn, besides Maria and Juan, there were a few young people here and there. The university dormitory was not far from the bar, only 1.3 kilometers away. The two chatted happily as they walked and quickly reached the dormitory. When Juan was about to leave, Maria suddenly became concerned about his safety. The local security situation was not very good, with frequent robberies. Conveniently, Maria had a car, so she offered to drive Juan home. Juan lived in the Renda apartments, 2.2 kilometers from the dormitory. Initially, Juan intended to refuse, but he could not resist Maria's insistence and agreed. He placed his soccer ball on the back seat and sat in the passenger seat. At 5:23 a.m., the car arrived at the Renda apartments. A security camera captured images of the parking lot in front of the apartments. Maria's car slowly approached and stopped next to a white car, partially hidden from view. After parking, they did not immediately get out but continued to chat happily. 6 minutes later, at 5:29, the security camera captured 4 men walking past the spot where Maria's car was parked. They looked back as they walked, appearing very suspicious, and then disappeared from the camera's view. These 4 men were Alejandro Perez, 32, Francisco Rodriguez, 26, Javier Ramirez, 27, and Manuel Torres, 28. All were known criminals specializing in robberies, thefts, and countless other crimes. Their presence here late at night indicated that they were hunting for prey. 3 minutes later, at 5:32, 2 of the 4 men reappeared on the security camera. This time, they walked straight to Maria's blue Nissan Note. At that moment, the 2 in the car were completely unaware of the danger approaching them. The car doors were unlocked, and the windows were still open. Just as Juan was about to get out of the car, one of the men suddenly appeared at the car window, pointing a screwdriver at Juan and forcing him to move to the back seat. The man with the screwdriver then jumped into the driver's seat, pushing Maria to the middle of the front seat. Next to her was Alejandro Perez, and soon after, the other 2 men also climbed into the back seat, restraining Juan. They searched the 2 victims for phones and wallets. Maria, frightened, begged the robbers to take their belongings and leave. Manuel Torres, one of the robbers, opened Juan's wallet, saw only 40 Mexican pesos, about $2.50, and initially planned to leave, but seeing that the other 3 had no intention of stopping, he decided to stay. Manuel Torres took the soccer ball and fled. By this time, it was already 5:35 a.m. Alejandro Perez was in the driver's seat, quickly found the car keys, and started the engine. At 5:39, the car slowly left the apartment parking lot. After driving a short distance, the 3 robbers pulled Juan out of the car and stuffed him into the trunk. Maria, trembling with fear, asked where they were taking her. The robbers said they just wanted to go home and would return the car later. Naively, Maria believed they would keep their promise. But this was only the beginning of the nightmare. The car traveled about 10 kilometers before stopping in a secluded alley. 2 of the robbers got out of the car to buy drugs from a suspicious group of people. Then they continued driving. After another stretch of road, they stopped by the side of the road, opened the trunk, and demanded Juan's PIN for his bank card. Reluctantly, Juan provided the number. They drove another 10 kilometers to a gas station on the outskirts of Ciudad Juarez. The security camera showed the blue Nissan Note stopping in front of the store. Alejandro Perez then entered the store. He was wearing a puffer jacket and black pants and held Juan's bank card. He stood in front of the ATM for a long time, repeatedly trying to withdraw money, but was unsuccessful because Juan had given him a fake PIN. Leaving the store, Alejandro Perez returned to the car and drove away from the gas station. The security camera clearly showed Maria sitting in the passenger seat. The car traveled about 15 kilometers to Cayamandi. Here, Alejandro Perez and his accomplices bought and used drugs, making some dubious deals. Then they continued driving to a local area where Juan was locked in the trunk, in extreme panic. He constantly kicked the trunk, trying to escape. Maria seemed calmer, not screaming, but the noise from the trunk quickly angered the criminals. At 7:30 a.m., the car stopped in a deserted field on the outskirts of Caya. Maria, frightened, asked the robbers why they had stopped there. They replied that they had stopped to smoke and rest. Alejandro Perez and Javier Ramirez pulled Juan out of the trunk and led him to a secluded spot. They pushed Juan to the ground. Juan trembled all over, not knowing what he was about to endure. The robbers expressed their anger, accusing Juan of giving them a fake pin and mocking them, saying he would have to pay for it. Alejandro Perez and Javier Ramirez picked up a large stone from the ground and hit Juan on the head. At 12 o'clock that same day, in Kea, a couple watching TV in their living room heard a desperate cry for help outside their door. They opened the living room window and saw a young man covered in blood standing in front of them. The couple was a bit frightened, mistaking him for a gang member who had just fought with someone else, and asked him to leave quickly. The young man was Juan. He was seriously injured but miraculously remained alive and conscious. Juan stumbled, seeking help, when he encountered the couple. He tried to ask them to call the police, and realizing the seriousness of the situation, the couple quickly called the police. Upon receiving the message, the police arrived at the scene and took Juan to the hospital. Upon examination, Juan was found to have a broken arm, severe brain injury, and permanent deafness in his left ear. He told the police about the entire incident and begged them to save Maria. In fact, more than an hour earlier, a young woman's body had been discovered in a vineyard in Ciudad Juarez. The police quickly arrived at the scene. The victim was so disfigured that she could not be identified. Her limbs were covered in bruises, and her head was severely injured. There were 2 stab wounds on the victim's neck, and there were signs of sexual assault. Based on Juan's testimony, the police conducted a DNA comparison and confirmed that the victim was indeed Maria, 25 years old. Clearly, another serious crime had occurred. Returning to an earlier moment after killing Maria, the robbers did not stop. At 10:30 a.m., they drove Maria's car from Ciudad Juarez to Cayamandi and attacked a 32-year-old female worker on her way to work. The car blocked the woman's path. Alejandro Perez and Francisco Rodriguez got out of the car, pushed the woman, and stole her phone, wallet, and bank card before fleeing. A few hours later, they arrived in Parral, 9 kilometers south of Cayamandi. There, they continued to rob another woman, forcing her into the car. At 1:12 p.m., a security camera at a gas station in Ciudad Juarez captured images of the blue Nissan Note. The kidnapped woman was sitting in the back seat. Alejandro Perez, the ringleader, got out of the car. He had changed clothes, now wearing beige pants instead of the black ones he wore earlier. He entered the store and, as before, used the recently stolen bank card to withdraw money from the ATM. This time, the PIN was correct, and he withdrew 3,000 pesos, about $200 at the current exchange rate. Having obtained the money, the 2 robbers calmly left the store and drove away. The kidnapped woman escaped death because she provided the correct PIN, and they released her on a deserted rural road. Later, the 3 robbers returned to Ciudad Juarez and divided the 3,000 pesos among themselves. Francisco Rodriguez received 1,000 pesos and got out of the car. The remaining 2 continued to drive around the area, intending to sell the Nissan Note. However, by this time, the car's license plate had been added to the police's wanted list. At 2:30 p.m., a plainclothes police officer patrolling near the wine-producing area of Ciudad Juarez noticed Maria's blue car. There were 2 people in the car. To avoid attracting their attention, the officer quietly contacted the center for backup, then followed the car alone. Soon, another police car arrived for assistance. Realizing they were being followed, the car sped up and fled. The chase between the police and the criminals lasted half an hour. The Nissan Note was eventually blocked by the police near the gates of the arm farm. A camera on the farm captured the scene. A man in a blue jacket and black pants was the plainclothes police officer. The 2 robbers desperately tried to escape. One even jumped into a river, but it was all in vain. In the end, the police arrested both robbers. After the arrest, Alejandro Perez and Javier Ramirez gave very honest confessions, revealing the names of the other 2 accomplices. Even Francisco Rodriguez and Manuel Torres were arrested by the police. From the moment of Maria and Juan's abduction in the apartment to the arrest of the 4 criminals, Only more than 10 hours had passed, but in that short time, they committed 4 robberies, 1 murder, and nearly killed Juan. Facing police interrogation, they confessed to carjacking and kidnapping, but denied the charges of murder and sexual assault. Unanimously, they all blamed the other 3. According to Alejandro Perez's confession, that night he suddenly had the urge to have sex but had no money, so he invited Francisco Rodriguez and Javier Ramirez. After some discussion, the 3 decided to go out and make some money. They started wandering the streets. Along the way, they met Manuel Torres, a friend of Alejandro Perez, who also joined them. When they approached the Renda apartments, the 4 men noticed the blue Nissan Note. The car's interior lights were still on. They deliberately slowed down to take a closer look. After confirming that there was only 1 man and 1 woman in the car, they decided to attack. At 7:30 a.m., after attacking Juan, the 3 men turned their attention to Maria. To save her life, Maria tried to negotiate with them. She said she was willing to do anything if they spared her, but Maria overestimated their mercy. They continued driving. At 8:10 a.m., when the first light of dawn appeared, Maria's fear did not subside. She asked about Juan's condition. They told Maria that they had knocked Juan out and put him under a tree, and when he woke up, he would be fine. Then they stopped the car at an abandoned printing factory. Here, the 3 men took turns raping Maria. After that, they stuffed her into the trunk. The evil men were not yet ready to spare Maria. They drove to a vineyard in Ciudad Juarez, 19 kilometers from the factory. The trunk was opened again. Maria was terrified. To save her life and not provoke them, Maria did not resist. Just when Maria thought they might let her go, one of them suddenly pulled out a sharp screwdriver and stabbed her in the neck. Then they found a large stone weighing 38 kilograms, lifted it together, and hit Maria on the head. Notably, during the investigation, the police discovered a 5th suspect named Nacho. This could have been a pseudonym or a fictitious name. This person was believed to have been involved in the case at some point. During the interrogation, all 4 criminals mentioned Nacho, but their statements regarding the extent of his involvement and specific role were inconsistent. It seemed they could not or would not reveal the true identity of this person. Ultimately, the police could not find Nacho, and it remained possible that the 5th suspect was fictitious, intended to confuse the investigation and conceal their crimes. A year later, the case was brought to trial in the High Court of Mexico, Western Cape Province. The 4 defendants were charged with murder and other crimes. The case sparked public outrage, and many people closely followed its progress in court. The prosecution presented critical evidence, including footage from security cameras at the parking lot, the store, and the 38-kilogram stone used in the crime. During the trial, the 4 defendants showed no remorse. They not only laughed and joked, but also openly displayed affection for their friends in the courtroom, showing clear disrespect for the law. However, Francisco Rodriguez, one of the criminals, secretly wrote a letter to Maria's parents asking for forgiveness, but in court, he showed no remorse. After some time, Judge J. Sina concluded that none of the 4 defendants showed genuine remorse for the crimes they had committed. Public anger reached its peak. After a period of deliberations, the High Court of Mexico, Western Cape Province, delivered its final verdict. Defendant Manuel Torres was found guilty of robbery and kidnapping and sentenced to 22 years in prison. The other 3 defendants, Alejandro Perez, Javier Ramirez, and Francisco Rodriguez, were found guilty of murder and other crimes and sentenced to life imprisonment. This was the highest sentence in Mexico. When the judge finished reading the verdict, the people in the courtroom could not contain their emotions and burst into applause and cheers. However, the criminals, anticipating the outcome, appeared indifferent and unmoved before the cameras. They even smiled and gave thumbs-up gestures. Javier Ramirez even turned to the audience and made funny faces. Their actions were a clear disregard for the law. The reason they dared to behave this way was that they knew Mexico does not apply the death penalty. After the case, Maria's parents established a charitable foundation in her name. All the funds raised will be used to help local children receive education, avoid poverty, and escape violence. Maria's death was a heavy blow to her family,